I was not very good at college. In college, I even flunked one exam, and I had to wait a whole year to write it again and pass it. I just wanted to put in the effort, and I just did not care about the result. I told him कि भाई मैं खत्म कर रहा हूँ, मुझे नहीं करना, मैं जा रहा हूँ JNU जा रहा हूँ या law करने जा रहा हूँ. I don't want to prepare anymore. And then he told I spend about 90% of my time, and this is not an exaggeration, 90% of my time for my ethics and my optional. I came to know about Civilsdaily from Anudeep Duri Shetty's blog or something. Later on, any current affairs that I used to have doubt on, there most probably there would be some article in Civilsdaily about it. Answer thinking, I think, is the most important underrated thing that UPSC
answer thinking.
Yes.
The struggle is when people ask you why you don't quit and you don't know the answer. The struggle is when your employees think you're lying and you think they might be right. The struggle is when food loses its taste.
So judge yourself by your effort and not by, an external thing like the exam. So even if I fail, even if I don't make it in the finalist.
In this whole cycle of UPSC prep, what was the most raw and real moment for you? Hi everyone, you know me, you've seen a lot of raw and reels done by me with the rankers, and this is the 4th episode of the 2nd season. Today I have BENJO with me, and I take about 10 minutes to get to know the person who I'm going to have an hourly chat with. And one of the things that we kind of came at a common ground is this idea about struggle and what UPSC makes you. So BENJO had a stellar record in his schooling. Then he comes to St. Stephen's, where he suffers miserably with math honors. He decides to jump to UPSC for reasons he'll share, and then clears the rank of 59 in his 4th attempt, and not without all the struggles, right? And I was just discussing with him that we have this ritual of giving good books to rankers we speak with. And I was narrating, and I'll do it again, the idea of struggle from one of the very good books that I recommend everyone to read. Struggle is when you wonder why you started the company in first place, or why you started the preparation in the first place. Struggle is when you're having a conversation with someone and you cannot hear a word they're saying because all you can hear is struggle. Struggle is when the food loses its taste. Struggle is when you go out for a vacation and you come out even more messed up. Struggle is where self-doubt becomes self-hatred. And I think this line resonated with you because you also happen to be a guy who journals. So let's start with that. Journaling is something I've seen a lot of rankers do as a part of their rituals or a part of their journey. Give me a sense of, were you always this kind of a person who would put his thoughts down, do a bit back and forth with yourself, or is this something which UPSC took you in and this is your own self quirk which you developed over time?
I think in my school days and even during UPSC preparation, I was not a very meticulous. I was not very meticulous with journaling. I'm not a very daily journaling sort of guy. But then every now and then, whenever I have a thought or whenever I think about something, or maybe when I'm just doing nothing, I'll just take this journal out and write something. So not always, but then I think the frequency might have increased once I took up UPSC preparation, but because then you have a lot of free time to think about what you are, where you have come from, and where you're going to.
Interesting. Okay, so we've known that a lot of people who are clearing the rank in their 3rd or 4th attempt, and they kind of obviously see a lot of highs and lows, which either their academic career had never given them a sneak peek of. You kind of were a topper in your school throughout, and you were excelling at sports also. Just give a sense of what was the transition from class 12th, where you had done everything at A level, to Stephens, where you met with the All India crowd and math wasn't what you thought it would be, to a point where the UPSC decision happened. Like, how was the transition for you?
So, like you said, school was good. I mean, I did. I think I fared reasonably well in school. I was scoring good marks. I was there in athletics. I did volleyball. I was there in other things as well, debate, science, congress, everything. So school for me was very nice, but it's a very small town. And when you come to college, you realize that you are nothing. And there you see a lot of people who are 100 times more talented than you, 1,000 times more hardworking than you. And all of a sudden, you realize, you know, you are so full of yourself that you've come uh, in you've come to face the reality that you need to work a lot. But then during college, I did not work a lot in my academics, because this is the first time I was out from my town. And frankly, in our school, we do not have as many activities or clubs or societies as in college. And in college, I immersed myself fully in everything, from acting, drama, to social service, to all sorts of random things in college. And then after my college, incidentally, I could not, I had a year back in my college because I could not clear one exam. I did not fail any exam, but in my last year, my last semester, incidentally also the last day of the exam schedule, I failed that exam. And then I had to wait a whole year. And that is when I thought about preparing for UPSC, to be very frank. Before that, I wanted to do law, but then this year I thought about preparing for UPSC, sort of like a resurgence arc, sort of like a redemption for myself. So this was the sort of transition from a fairly good performing person in school to performing person, but not in academics in college, to college flunky, and then deciding to do to UPSC. That was my whole journey till I started preparing.
And this is you looking backward, right? You're looking backwards and trying to connect the dots. Back then, you mentioned that you tried your hands at a lot of things, right? You did a startup, I believe,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
NGO. Like,
yeah.
what were the few
Yeah.
things that you dabbled with?
So I liked doing public service or social service. I was part of this club called Social Service League in college, and I like the sort of job that we do. And I always wanted to do it in much more direct manner, or I mean, it was very direct. So in a scale much bigger than that. So I thought about NGOs, and NGOs one area where we could do this. And I did not directly do the conventional NGO sort of stuff, but it was like a an aggregator for NGOs. So this was an NGO which had a database of a lot of different NGOs, and they would give out finances, they would coordinate sponsorships, and do all of this hard corporate level stuff for different NGOs. And this is a place where I worked, and I realized how this whole industry works. And that's when I realized this is not something that I wanted to do. Definitely I do like social service and public service, but then I did not find the sort of contentment that I wanted when I worked there. And then I also tried to begin a small business. It is a drop shipping business. I made a small shop, website in Shopify. I tried to create a very small warehouse, and try to onboard some products. I was in talks with some manufacturers, but then some it did not materialize. I was there with a friend, and he could not, unfortunately, bring in the finances. Neither could me, because I was broke, and so then it did not materialize. And so
But
these are
wasn't
two
there
things
any
that I
other
did.
startup, early stage startup culture? कुछ स्टीफन में अर्ली स्टेज स्टार्टअप कल्चर रिक्रूटमेंट नहीं था क्या?
था मतलब, but I did not sit for any placements. And frankly, during college, I never wanted to work in a startup, nor in a
अच्छा.
in a corporate setting. So then I did not sit for it. But then it was after college, then I thought, okay, let's try this whole drop shipping business, because at that time it's a very easy to get in, very low entry barrier
Yeah.
sort of thing. So that's when I thought, and then there was a friend of mine who wanted to do it. So that's when I thought, let me try this out. But then I realized again that it's not me.
So this is like the 1 year drop. You flunked the course and then
Yeah,
you had a year
yeah,
to just experiment slightly.
yeah, yeah,
And then
yeah.
UPSC happened because, like you said, it's a
UPSC
redemption arc.
happened. UPSC happened because like I said earlier, after my math, I wanted to do law. Law
Hmm.
was something that I was really interested in. I wrote the Delhi University entrance exam. I got a very good rank, and I could get into campus law center. But then, because of the whole year back, I could not join that year. So then I had to wait a whole year. And this is the year when I did the NGO and the startup, business,
Right.
whatever. And this is when I decided, okay, these are not the things that I want to do. Let me do something else. So by this time, corporate was out of my list because I'd never want to do it. NGO was out, startup business,
Startup was
everything
out.
was out. And then the only logical, future for me was UPSC. And also, in 2018, one of our seniors, you might know him, Vikram Grewal, he
Yes.
cleared. And then in 2019, another batchmate of mine, she cleared. I was not friends with them, during college. But then, these people clearing also, you know, tickle something inside your heart, and then you feel all of a sudden you can also clear. And so all of this, and this obviously the journey that I've had so far, and then the achievements of these people clubbed together, I took the decision. I took that leap of faith and started preparing for UPSC.
Fair enough. And then it didn't happen for 2 years. It didn't happen for two consecutive attempts. You couldn't clear prelims. And
Yeah,
then a
yeah,
moment of reckoning must have come that, was it all in that
yeah, yeah.
moment of thing, right? So how do you
So,
come to terms with that?
so I remember, even before giving my first attempt, about 6 months into preparation, a very good friend of mine is in the Air Force now, and he was not in the Air Force then. He was also an aspirant then. And so I told him कि भाई मैं खत्म कर रहा हूँ, मुझे नहीं करना, मैं जा रहा हूँ JNU जा रहा हूँ या लॉ करने जा रहा हूँ, I don't want to prepare anymore. And then he told कि भाई देख कितना बुक्स है, 10 बुक, 20 बुक, you just have to read 10 or 20 books and that's it. It's a very simple thing to say. It's not easy to read 10 or 20 books, but then that, changed something in my brain. And then I thought कि ठीक है, मतलब है इतना ही बुक है, 10-20 बुक पढ़ना है, मिलेगा, और या जो भी है. But then even after that 6 months, I did not, even when he said कि you just have to read 10 books, I did not, all of a sudden, turn into this, superhero learner. It was a very slow process, and in my first attempt, before my first attempt, I had not even completed one basic book. That is God's honest truth. But I still, I had spent a whole year. So something that you, told before, that you had to learn how to learn, somebody else,
Hmm. Yeah,
So that
Bhargav.
happened with me as well. Yes, so that happened with me as well. All through my school, I knew how to learn. Through my college, I forgot how to learn. Now I have to, relearn learning. And my first attempt failed because I did not read any books. My second attempt, I failed because again I could not keep up the momentum. 2 months before the exam, I was scoring easily 80, 90, sometimes even 100. But then I could not keep the momentum for the last 2 months. I was very stressed. Whole mental health sort of thing. Just something that you said before. Food loses taste, and
Yeah.
for me, personally, it was like there's the whole shade or tint of gray, in my vision, right? So the world is not colorful anymore, and that was me, just 2 months before the exam, before my second prelims, and I just missed the cutoff by, I think, point something, less than 1 marks.
Oh, is it?
And then, yes, it was 87 or something. I scored 86, or general cutoff was 87. I scored 86 or
Oh,
something in
damn.
my second prelims. Yeah. But then that did not, hurt me so far. And that I think was the, day of reckoning. my parents was also asking me, "Ki bhai ho gaya do attempt, you've tried. What is your next plan?" And then I joined for law. Not in Delhi. I joined in Trivandrum, Government Law College, Trivandrum. And that is where I attempted my third attempt and my fourth attempt. So in my third attempt, I just 10 days before the exam, I was writing my university semester exams and attending classes and then that's when I wrote my third mains. And then after my mains, when I got the interview called my third attempt, I took a 1 year break. So in my fourth attempt, I was completely preparing in this break from
Okay,
my
so
law college.
in your third attempt, you didn't
Yeah.
clear, but you got till the interview. How was it? What
Yeah.
what didn't work for you? The mains marks did not work for you, or the interview tanked? Which was it?
So my interview marks were very good. I scored 195 then, but the general cutoff for mains was 748, I guess, and I scored 749. So uh, that I just cleared mains with 1 mark, and irrespective of this, despite my very good performance in the interview, I could not clear that. So it was my mains that did me wrong then.
Oh, you mentioned that your friend said कि यार सिर्फ 10 20 किताबें हैं, and I sometimes it's very interesting how even simpler lines like hit you and just stay with you
Yeah,
for long, right? Like like I was telling you,
yeah,
right? I
yeah.
chat with rankers and sometimes they say something and it's like, यार ये कैसे बोल दिया है? Like Bhargav, who I'll
Yeah.
give you some more context. His mother is an IAS officer, Maharashtra cadre. He was always second from the last in his class. So no one kind of expected him to do anything, right? And even his brother asked कि तूने किया ही क्यों ये exam? And he said because this was the hardest thing to do. And it's only in the hindsight, now that he's done it, he's like, probably I always wanted to show that there's more to me than what was I was getting
Mhm,
through the school then, because when you're son of a collector, you keep changing schools. So sometimes it's not easy for a kid. You keep shifting schools, and it's kind of,
mhm.
some people take time to make sense of
Yeah.
the changing order. Uh, but I also sometimes find it interesting that you fail two attempts. It's not easy, especially for a guy who's had stellar record in school. And what kind of answers you want to give back to your parents, and so that's a struggle. These are the real struggle moments. And when I speak to
Yeah.
folks like you, and I think of the larger janta jo ye videos dekh rahi hogi, what would you say that kya karna hota hai, like when you are in such low points of life that
Mhm,
factually you
mhm,
should quit, or factually you should admit that it was wrong, I was like
mhm,
in over my head.
mhm,
How do you
mhm,
keep going? What kept you going in that moment? You mentioned that it was self improvement. I wanted to just be better, but was that
mhm,
it? Is that sounds very logical and rational, but was
mhm,
that it? Is
mhm.
that how you built?
Yeah, I think self-improvement was one part of it, certainly. I mean, looking back, every time I attempted something, I realized that this is, not my best. And these are areas where I could perform better. And so that is something that I always wanted to do. It was not, particularly in civil services preparation, but all throughout my school. So I remember earlier on, I was not a very good, I used to play volleyball. I was not a very good passer of the ball. I could not take the first pass. So I used to do a lot of ball practice in my home. And a
Okay.
lot of ball practice, I'm very surprised. I would be surprised if my friends did as much as me. So I always wanted to, fight with myself and improve. So that was a very prominent part of my whole, life till now. And even now, I hope I could continue that. But then again, something else at that time, you would want to believe in destiny. You would want to believe that the universe, provides or, would care for you and everything. So, um, yeah, I mean, I'm not that big of a believer like that, but you would want to believe. I mean, if there is not, a very minutest or a very slightest thread of faith, it's very difficult for you to go forward. I will not say that I have the best faith, 100% faith, surety. No, I'm not that good of a religious believer that I have that good of faith. But then you hope maybe, to the minutest extent that maybe you could clear it, right? So that is one part. And then, you know, I grew philosophically over these 4 years. So I took up Stoicism. I read a little bit of Marcus Aurelius, and there's a very famous, you would know him, the author Ryan Holiday. I read daily Stoic meditations.
Your batch has a lot of Stoic philosophers, or Ishani Anand I was chatting with, like, yeah, she's read, I don't know if she read Ego is the Enemy or something, some other book. This is something around discipline, but Ryan Halliday, who's also on Instagram, and I think,
Yes,
have
yes.
you read anything from Robert Greene?
No, I have no, I've
Who
not. I've not.
who's written those 48 laws of, he's written such books. I think
Huh,
Ryan
no,
Halliday is his student, in a manner of speaking.
okay,
Uh,
okay. Mm.
okay, interesting digression, but let me take it. What is Stoicism? I get what Stoicism ke good points are. I think it says something that you suffer in your head more than you suffer in real life, and goes on the
Mhm,
tangent.
mhm,
But is that enough?
mhm,
Like, the Stoicism keeps you, in the right headspace,
mhm.
or you find that nahi, yaar, isme bhi kami hai, yaar. This, as a philosopher, how did you grow into Stoicism, and are you still there, or have you grown out?
I think, see, I don't believe in labeling myself or identifying myself with one particular philosophy or one particular anything, right? I just don't want to identify myself like that, because I think it's a very limiting thing to do. I just want to take up whatever works for me, right? Whatever works for the betterment of the society that I live in, nation, my family. So that's just the thing for me. Wherever I get it, I take it. If there is something wrong with it, I just do not take it. So yes, over the years, I have embraced a lot of things in Stoicism. Like you said, pain is temporary, suffering is permanent, and again, suffering is something that you do inside your head. It's not real, and all sorts of that. And then this importance to effort and not result. All of this has a very strong basis in Stoicism. But over the years, I've realized, maybe because it is not something that Stoicism itself has a problem with. Stoicism might be a near perfect philosophy. I don't know it because I'm not that good of a student of Stoicism. But then, based on whatever I know, I felt that sometimes it is about not coming in terms with your emotions. That is, I've then, since then, seen a lot of Ryan Holiday podcast, and listen to him to know that that is not true. Even in Stoicism, you do come to terms with your emotions. But then, how I perceived it then was that snub your emotions just a little. So in that aspect, I've changed just over the years. I've changed that. But Baki, whatever was of benefit for me, I just took it directly out. And I will not say that those are very conscious things that I try to implement, but then reading it and trying to follow it, step by step over the years have created the subconscious imprint in me, which might have helped.
Yeah, makes sense. I know for sure that UPSC journey can be very lonely, especially when it's long. Uh, because it's such a personal endeavor, right? Even your failures and highs and lows are so personal. Like, one of the rankers was talking about the cookie jar thing, where
Mhm.
whatever little joys and highs she gets, she used to write it and put it in a cookie jar. I literally thought it would
Yeah.
be a glass jar, but I realized it's a
Mhm.
notebook of sorts, in the manner of speaking. So, so we'll getting back to your second failure, right? So prelims did not happen for 2 times in a row, and
Mhm.
then you get yourself
Yeah.
up, and then you come back to your hometown, and then you join a law college, and then you write the third attempt where you couldn't clear the interview. Now, I just want to know the high points, okay? Not the high points, but the most sincere, awesome X factor things that you did in the fourth attempt, where you got yourself together, you got a real, level 99 awareness about, what kind of a person you are, how you study, what shot you have, and how do you optimize and maximize that. And I'm asking this because just giving a perspective that this year ranked to Animesh, who was a part of our mentorship student, looked at his mark sheet and he scored 175 in interview only, which is an average mark because his mother was, like every time he had this pre-mains or interview, 15 दिन the PET scan were worse than what they were before. But his mains record was so stellar that, he could catapult himself to rank 2. So he kind of, in a way, made himself interview proof. He knew where his strength lied, and he was a massively disciplined student with us. What were your strong points? Like, what were those things which you know, yaar, everything else I can't control, but I can control this, and these I have mastered?
My strong points, I have thought while I was writing, was my optional, my ethics, and my essay. I think those were my strong points. My essay was good. Last year I scored not really good, but then I scored 125. This year, unfortunately, I did not score as much. I scored only 99.
Wow.
But ethics and anthro, I've improved this year. So I think these three were my strong points. But then there is another, strong point, which is GS. But GS in that the ROI for my GS was very high. I would, it's very safe to say I spend about 90% of my time, and this is not an exaggeration, 90% of my time for my ethics and my optional. I remember I took up GS maybe post August 20th, right? I had a cousin's wedding in early 20s of August, and it is only post that I took GS. I remember that. So my ROI for GS was very high. I think I did something markedly different from what people otherwise do. I did not write a lot of tests. I just wrote 2 tests this year. So in that way, I think my ROI for GS was very high. So though that might be another strength, retrospectively looking back.
Oh, interesting. So you didn't write any much of mocks?
No.
Mocks first phase.
I wrote 4 mocks complete, so 2 for my optional and 2 for my GS, nothing else. I used to write daily answers, but again, not every day. But yes, every week I would used to write maybe 3 days, 2 days, I would write daily answers.
Okay, cool. Let me ask this question then. What's the most underrated thing in the whole UPSC preparation, which people don't really understand how important it is? But that really makes the cut. Or what was it for you?
Answer thinking, I think, is the most important underrated thing that UPSC
answer thinking.
Yes.
Okay. Elaborate, please.
So yeah. So people are obsessed with writing. I'm not saying that they should not write. They should write. There is a 7-minute, 10-minute cutoff for every answer. There is an intro body conclusion. There is diagrams and data and everything. And if you are not a person who could write, practice writing. By all means, practice writing. But then GS, as well as your optional to a lot of extent, is about bringing the best points, in my opinion. The best points comes not from your hand, it comes from your brain. And so if you're not thinking about these answers over and over again, you cannot bring them to the paper. Now, I know a lot of people, almost every other topper would be writing a lot of tests, and that's how they would be thinking and bringing their answers into the paper. Now, I didn't have a lot of time. Even after my 3rd attempt, I didn't have a lot of time. I still had a lot of optional complete. I still had the whole ethics to complete. I did not study ethics in my 3rd attempt. And in my 4th attempt, because I did not join any classroom coaching, I did not have notes, neither did I prepare for ethics. So I had, 100% of ethics and about 60% of my optional to complete during my, between the prelims and mains space. So because I did not have that much time, I just checked out answers. I wrote answers to check my timing, to see if there is an intro body conclusion, to see if I could bring diagrams and maps and everything. And all of that for me was easy. So that was not difficult for me. So then I realized, now if I want to bring points, then I should think. And that is what I did, which is something, we almost all people do it, but in a very small way, just brainstorming. You take a question, you brainstorm the answers, you scribble
Yeah.
it down. I used to do it, a lot of times, and I have books in which I've just done that. And I used to do it in a particular way. I used to use some template, not just the pestle template that everybody uses, the quality, economy, social.
Yeah.
I used to do, usually I use the syllabus template, because syllabus is the best template out there, because it is so much, you can divide, if you want me to elaborate, I would elaborate it, later. But then
Please,
the
please do.
syllabus
Please
template,
do. Okay, no. Please do.
yeah.
Please do. Just give an
So,
example because this is interesting.
yeah, sure. So, when I get a question, I would think so the intro and the conclusion would be different. I'm not talking about the intro or the conclusion, but about the body part, it might have causes, it might have effects, or it might have solutions or whatever. Now, you are asked always to be multidimensional. So how do you become multidimensional? You think through the syllabus. That's how I used to think. So I used to start with GS1. Now in GS1, I could subdivide it into uh, history, and then society, and then geography, right? So I'll see if there is a point from history or geography or society here. If there is no point, then I could go further, right? So in history, I could go to early Vedic or later Vedic, or medieval, modern. Even inside modern, I could do go to Gandhian or some other, right? In society, I could go to women, industrialization, urbanization, population, poverty, hunger. So many points related to the question could be just obtained just like that. It's a very easy process to do. And if I demonstrated it to some of my friends the other day, and it's a very simple, easy thing to do. And you would be amazed at how much points you actually know about a question
Can
when
you
you just
take one
brainstorm.
example? Can you take an example which you
Okay.
remember from anyone?
Okay, so last day I was discussing with some of my friends about how to use this, and we discussed about the rise of left-wing extremism in India. And so what are the causes of the rise of left-wing extremism in India? And so here you could use these templates, and rather than just trying to recall points from Spectrum or whichever book you've studied for the rise of left-wing extremism, you could think in other ways. So let's say you think about art and culture, and let's say you think about literature. Then all of a sudden you could maybe think about some book that might have, let's say, The Drain of Wealth or something like that, which would be an example of a literature which would have led to the rise of left-wing extremism. Similarly, you think about society and you think about women, and then you understand the plight of women's issues, and then how that might have led to left-wing extremism. So again, I don't think I'm doing enough justice to this explanation. Maybe some other question I could take. But then
So
this is the general.
I'm assuming that most students would kind of bank heavily on these frameworks, Pestle and like whatnot, which are like known. And you're saying organically you will pick out strand from the syllabus because you've memorized or you've understood and assimilated the syllabus aspect so well. So if a question comes, you'll see which line can you actually go deep and still answer the question. But
Yeah.
that would mean that you would have thought about it in your whole preparation because your muscle memory needs to kick in, right? At the point.
Correct.
You can't be, it can't be the first time that you're thinking through it, right? And you never used to write mocks, so you do not have much writing practice as such. So then how do you make it practical for yourself to write it in the stipulated time and actually do it convincingly?
Yeah. So again, this is not something, it's not a very concrete thing. Over time it becomes very abstract, it becomes very natural muscle memory. So how you can bring it is by practicing. So even if you do not practice for the left-wing extremism question, you practice for some other question. That brainstorming that you do there could be used here as well. A certain point that you obtain from that question is there in your brain, and you could bring that point to another question as well. So how you make it, first time you go to the mains exam and you try to brainstorm, nothing will come. First time I tried to brainstorm, I took 30 minutes for brainstorming one answer for one question. But then I did it over and over and over and again. Then, the time, started to come down. I could brainstorm a question in 3.5 minutes. So I just put 3.5 minutes for brainstorming, because then I would put the other 3.5 for writing. But that's not, just a mental map that I did.
Yeah.
In the actual exam hall, I did not divide it like that. I just started and the pen just kept on going, because I realized I could not brainstorm for the first 3.5 minutes and then, right? But then this 3.5 minutes brainstorming practice that I did during the, between my prelims and mains helped me to actually do it, when I was writing. And now another aspect that you mentioned is the time limit. I used to be very, specific to the time in my watch. So I used to look at my watch every 7 minutes, and I had a 10 minutes buffer also. So I usually people write it with 7 minutes and 11 minutes, but I write it with 7 minutes and 10 minutes. I don't know how people usually write it. So 7 minutes for a 10 marker and 10 minutes for a 15 marker. So it adds up to 170. I still have 10 minutes. 10 minutes is a buffer. So in case I take 1 or 2 minutes here and there, I adjust with the next question. So that's how I adjusted with the time limit. And it was not like I did not write any answers. I did write, daily answers. I used to write about 1 or 2, 3 times a week. So in that way, I was not completely out of touch of, with answer writing. But then because I was thinking so much, whenever I was writing, it would come more naturally. I hope I made sense.
Yes, I mean, I understand. I mean, I would understand what you did, but it would be great if you could either, send me some of your answer copies, post
Yes,
this
I would certainly do that.
podcast,
I will do that.
and
Yeah.
we'll put it out with the video. And would be even great if you can just get half an hour of your pure academic time one day, where you take us through some of the examples, so we can compare things, right? We can compare the usual stuff that people aspirants get to know from the old cliche institutes and all that, and some of these very creative stuff which you kind of tried. And I think that's what makes the X factor. That's what I think differentiates, because most of the rankers I speak with, या तो खुद से ही ऐसे होते कि they try something creatively, they're stubbornly creative about their way of preparation, or they happen to come to this zone कि यार you have to be true to yourself, understand what works for you and just go with that. Which brings me to one interesting raw and real question, that in this whole cycle of UPSC prep, what was the most raw and real moment for you? And you might have mentioned that somewhere, but what was it that kind of gave you कि या तो अब यहाँ से मैं rocket ship लेके ऊपर उड़ रहा हूँ, or it could be that, or it could be something which like, fuck, I didn't know this, and this is real, and this is something very bad, or a realization which kind of stayed with you even now.
I think it was the importance, or I would say this fetish that people have with GS. And I realized that is not a fetish that I could, again, due to the paucity of my time, that is when I realized, I just do not have to be a lot of tech, bookish, textual to score marks in GS. I realized I had to bring in creativity, because first time I wrote GS, again, very less preparation, but I still scored 385, which is not very good, but then I was really happy. And then I got to know, and this is a very eureka moment from a lot of mentors, independently, that in your first attempt, you have this flare of creativity, and UPSC rewards creativity. So in my next mains, I had to maintain creativity, at the same time improve my content just a little bit. And this is what I was trying to say. So I just put out this fetish, I just did not want to have so much of fetish with GS. Invest as little time as possible so that my creativity is still intact, but invest some time so that I bring in committees and I bring in articles and I bring in all this value addition stuff that everybody else is also doing. I think that was a very awakening moment.
That's a very good point. And I think it must be hard to find this balance between getting the
Yeah,
creativity game on and staying it at that
yeah,
level.
yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
all the time when you used to lose focus during this course of prep, what were some of the things that you used to do to get back on the zone? Like, must have been days or maybe probably even weeks of no productive study, right? So, what were some of the things that got you back?
I had a lot of streaks like that, and this is when something that we discussed earlier. Self-criticism just morphs into self-hate and self-loathing, and I had so much of self-loathing that I had cold troughs. I was in a very rough patches, weeks. How I used to get back up, is by talking with my friends and my family, right? So as a very, my flatmate and my friend from college days, Nandu, we used to talk, and he used to just tell me, कि आजा, मतलब come to the reading room, just sit there, you don't have to study, just sit there. You don't do anything else. You don't scroll or see YouTube videos and do random stuff, but just come there, sit there. There's AC there, all cool, chill, everything. And I used to do that sometimes, and then slowly I used to pick up. But most of the times it was a very, so this used to happen. So I used to call my friends or my mother up, and then they would motivate me to come back to and refocus. But most of the times, even after them telling me, I could still not come back, because this is not in somebody else's hand. I had to talk to myself. So I used to have long lectures with myself. I used to give myself a speech, 30 minutes, 45 minutes की क्या कर रहा है, मतलब ये
Are you
सारा जो
serious?
भी मेरा, yeah, I used to talk myself into studying. I used to write.
Okay.
Sometimes I used to write, or I used to talk to myself. And it's a very rational sort of dialogue, because a lot of the times, what a friend, why you need a friend is for you to listen to yourself, because
Hmm.
everything is happening inside your head. You need to hear what you think. Otherwise, it's just thoughts and going everywhere, and you just don't know what you're thinking and what you're not. So I used to talk to my friends, and I used to talk with myself. And when I used to talk with myself, or when I used to write, you know, I could get a lot of clarity.
And it's funny how most, not funny, but it's like how these are the same strands that I find from. So one of the rankers, and I'm forgetting the name, used to talk to a soft toy,
Mhm.
you know, and so someone who used to talk to the pet they had, a dog.
Mhm.
कि रात को 2
Mhm.
बजे पढ़ रहे हैं तो चलो कोई साथ है पढ़ने के लिए and all that.
Mhm.
And when I listen, and this happened last year also when I was talking to the rankers, and when this happens, and such chats were not popular or were not regular features. Like a couple of years or so back, also rankers used to just come and give a holier than thou speech about ये ऐसे पढ़ लो वहाँ से पढ़ लो उसका ध्यान रखना, and then
Mhm.
but the struggles are these. These are the struggles. The struggle is this,
Yeah,
and this is as real as it gets.
yeah.
Uh, So I'm assuming you got philosophical and Stoicism is one of the part. But you mentioned one interesting thing, right? Ki, you found someone, वो तेरे दोस्त ने बोला कि 20 तो किताबें, and you found that line good. I mean, it kind of paused you, but still, it took time for you to come to terms with that. You might
Yeah,
speak with friends and family, and it's great to have that support, but still, it takes time for you to convince yourself to get there,
yeah.
you know? And that's hard. This is the hard struggle because this is no movie. You are in that struggle for 4 years now. You
Mhm.
can't keep telling yourself, that toxic positive wala funda. So you have to kind of
Yeah,
give
yeah,
yourself some
yeah,
sense ki ye jana
yeah.
hai, ye karne ka hai, and all that, right?
Mhm.
So either
Mhm.
you're completely rational, or I don't know what, or you maybe just live every day and just tell, yeah, let's do it, and then momentum will take care of it all.
See, it is not toxic positivity. I am a person. I have seen a lot of people, be like this. They're delusionally positive. They just
Yeah.
don't do anything, and they just talk to themselves. Or when you ask them, "Ki ho jayega, mera to set hai." That was not me. If you
Hmm.
ask me, I would never tell that to you. Right? When in my preparation, I would never tell that. I because I never really believed that those things, man. Ki mera ho jayega, ye ho jayega. What I used to tell myself was, ki sit and study. That is the only thing that you can do. I used to tell myself not about the result, not about कि मिलेगा तो क्या मिलेगा, कुछ नहीं. I just used to tell myself, this is your duty. This is what you should do. And, uh, irrespective of what you're feeling, you might be feeling like a piece of shit, and you might be feeling like, failure and inadequacy and all sorts of things. But then everybody feels that. I mean, anybody who's in preparation, they would, inevitably go through that feeling once or twice. So it's just about how you pick yourself up. So my talk with myself was all about that, wake up or stand up and just do what you're supposed to do your duty. And so it was sort of like a pep talk, not thinking about the result, but again, asking yourself to, prepare, to put it very simply. I know it sounds very weird, but then that is what I used to tell myself.
No, it's like I said, it's as real. It's as real as it gets. And most of the aspirants, they don't realize that it gets very gray. This whole thing gets very serious in a way that you can't really figure out, and you just have to go with some strength or some faith, like you said. Okay, all can't just go in vain, but it still goes in vain. I think, personally speaking, I don't remember, but it appeared to me once that we're all a part of statistics, right? It's math in a way, manner of looking. So koi hero hoga kabhi, and then it'll go down for him or her, and then maybe a few years later you'll make it. But there's nothing personal. But you're a part of statistics, so it's like nahi bhi ho sakta. With all these grand realizations, you might still not get a rank.
Yeah, exactly. So that is what, fourth attempt. I got all these realizations, till my fourth attempt, and then fourth attempt, I was, if I did not make it, I was set. Not set as in I. Let me just go back and say, I would still feel sad. I would still feel bad. I would, I would go into. I would not go into depression, but that much I know. But then I would be very, very sad. When I would question myself. But then, by the fourth attempt, I made sure that, I just give importance to the effort, right? And I just do not give importance to the result, irrespective of the result. So that is why, after I came back from the interview, I know, a lot of the people, they might still be waiting for the date of the results to come. I was not interested in that. I bought two new books for archaeology, which I had not studied as much even in my fourth attempt, and I started reading them, and I was making notes, and I finished about 30% of that, and that is when the results came. So by that time, I made sure that in my mind, I give importance to the effort, irrespective. Even after all this realization, if I fail, still I have something to talk to myself to, right? Because again, I come back to something Ryan Holiday, or maybe might have said, about Marcus Aurelius or somebody. He judge yourself not by external events, but by matrices and controllables that you control, right? So judge yourself by your effort and not by an external thing like the exam. So even if I fail, even if I don't make it in the final list, I still judge myself based on the effort that I did. And if I feel that I've given enough of my effort, then let me be happy. That is the area to which I got to just before the result. Fortunately, it came out good for me. If it did not, if it had not, then I would still be sad. But then this philosophy must have helped me. I'm speculating.
No, and I think, okay, so what next now? So you got the results, and if you kind of were in that state of mind, then it would have been just like a good high point and then back to the same. Talking to you reminds me of that poem "If" by Rudyard Kipling. I don't know if you've read it. Have you?
Yeah.
right? If you something about that, treat success and failures just the same. These are two imposters, and
Yes, yes,
slightly stoic, or maybe
yes.
all of these people have
And
shades of all kind of things, right?
it's entirely true because I was talking to a lot of my friends. Yeah, so all of my friends, who asked me, कि हो गया भाई सिंगिंग हो गया फीलिंग कैसा है I said कि भाई कुछ फील नहीं हो रहा है मतलब there is no feeling as such see I get asked to come to felicitations and I get handed gifts and all obviously my parents for some of the events my parents are there I'm happy for them I also feel happy but then after a point of time it is very overwhelming and I just don't want to be there I just want to I have this is not this is not a lie I literally have wished that I could just sit in my cubicle and read something right go back to those books and just read something because I was very happy there my private space nobody used to disturb me so after results now again it is not some people say they're relieved some people say this feeling has sunk in it has not for me and frankly there wasn't you know at that very moment when somebody said कि भाई तुम्हें मिल गया रैंक 59 था एक थोड़ा फीलिंग अच्छा सा मतलब हाँ finally but then it just went away and now there's only what do I do in my training how can I put in the best effort in my training when I actually do the job how can I be good there that is what is driving me now and again I have a lot of personal goals I wanted to learn an instrument or read a lot of books I have some books in my wish list so those are my goals now and that is what puts me in stress right now okay, I'm not doing those things something else also I used to go to I used to exercise fairly regularly, just about 2-3 weeks before the results. I had stopped exercising about one year, but then I restarted just before the results. After my interview, of course, during my interviews as well as after my interviews, and so after the results, I could not exercise as much. So I am constantly very sad that I'm not chasing these personal goals of mine. And I'm not in a very
Yeah.
euphoric high key. Yeah, 59.
To some, these would sound like first world problems.
yeah, yeah.
If I just put this bite out, snippet out, and it's like, yeah, it's like they're mocking us in some way. But I get that. I was speaking with Uma, rank 3. She was one of our main faculty before she got the rank. And I was just asking her, this is like she was into Labasna 1 year, close to 1 year into Labasna. And I said, okay, so how are the lectures there? Like you get amazing personalities visiting you and all that jazz. And she said, it's okay, it's normal only, sir. It's like, this is a job that we have to do. So, some people have to give us the gyan which is relevant for that field. It's like, there's nothing. So, I say, कुछ ऐसे हॉगवर्ट्स टाइप नहीं है कि कुछ अलग ही यहाँ पे हो रहा है इट्स अ वेरी नॉर्मल थिंग एंड so we take it as like that so if you have any question I can answer otherwise I was like I was trying to get some clickbaity thing out of her but she very nicely she replied ki simple sahi hai I think which is how I think then this is how it is you've read a lot you've kind of gotten philosophy up in your stride and I think this is how we get to that place the only good thing now to do is keep and who knows you might find someday say कि यार हो गया bureaucracy का win and do something else no one knows
yeah
which is kind of nice and it's such an open-ended life that way if this is how if this is the zone that we get in cool awesome I think for the raw and real chat this is the best let me just get my water just give me a sec okay I'm sorry I think I got yeah but I think no issues like I think for a raw and real chat this is what usually it goes like and it wraps up on its own we kind of inevitably always come to an arc where ranker matures up we kind of understand and it's interesting for me to know ki, what did you do after you got the results must have been overwhelming for you like you said especially in your hometown where you're the hero now So everyone would
Yeah.
come for tips and whatnot. And if you talk like this philosopher, people won't get it. Right? I mean, most people won't get it. They'll be like, "नहीं, आप एकदम tangible कुछ बताओ
Yeah.
मुझको." What to do in life, how do you see life, and I think that even gets more trickier. It feels like you're lying, to
Yeah,
yourself.
exactly. So some people might feel that कि तुम्हें मिल गया भाई और तुम अचानक से philosopher बन गए. नहीं, that is not the case. Or तुम्हें मिल गया and now you don't want to share your secrets, so all of a
Yeah,
sudden you say all this कि oh, I'm not interested. In actuality, you might be very interested in but you can't do anything about that. I know what I feel and what I know, and that is that.
nice. Okay, so do send me the wish list that you have on the books. I'll try
Sure,
to send you some adjacent readings, which I feel you might enjoy once you've done yours. Uh,
sure,
and
sure.
since you, like most of the folks I've spoken to, have had a different treatment to subjects, whatever has been your
Mhm.
core strength, if you could, we'll take some time out and, maybe at a later day, uh, in this week or next, if you
Sure.
can just do a quick demo, so people who are preparing by their own, खुद से पढ़ रहे हैं, they can get a way into कि, अच्छा, think of syllabus like this, and this is how you can write an answer, or this is how it makes sense to you,
Mhm.
and then it's upon their practice, right? That would be
Sure.
like really, really helpful, practically helpful.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
tell me, how did you come to know about CD? Like, what was the association with us
Yeah.
from a
So,
distance? Or
I came to know about Civilsdaily from Anudip Durishetti's blog or something. So he used to refer to CD for daily current affairs. So
current affairs? Yeah.
that is how my initial, approach, initial sort of association happened. And then later on, any current affairs that I used to have doubt on, there must, most probably there would be some article in Civils Daily about it. So that is the second association. So I used to, research a lot more from Civils Daily. And the third was when I was preparing for science and tech, I did not have like a single place or a website to bank upon. So I depended a lot on Civils Daily. I depended on other websites as well. But then, especially for a lot of the genetics part, and all, I depended heavily on Civils Daily. So those are my main associations with Civils Daily.
Cool. I'll pass the due credit to the content writers.
Sure.
I didn't know about that. We did good work in science and tech. I thought we were doing good work in geography and stuff around polity
Yeah,
and governance.
I really like because a lot of the genetic stuff and all, I really liked the content there. Again, science and tech, you can't make an exhaustive list of everything on your website, but then I did find a lot of the questions that were covered in PYQs were there in the website, so it
Okay.
really helped. Yeah,
Nice. Awesome. That's great. Great to know. Cool. So we're at the end of the Roy and Real, and there is a last ritual question that I have started asking this season. That how was this chat? How do you find this format? I'm sure it's kind of new to you, but how was the overall chat from your end? Uh, your thoughts?
yeah. I really found it, different from the sort of thing that usually happens in the UPSC circle. But I think, because there's an infodemic, because everybody knows key prelims mains interview hota hai, because everybody knows the book list, everybody knows the texts, and everybody knows the sources, everybody knows about answer writing. These are the sort of things that should come up, because these are the sort of things that people usually do not talk about, people usually do not know, right? So how I went through my journey, right? What is stress, and what, the mental health aspect, and what sort of a person am I? I'm certainly no superhuman. I was not somebody who was divinely ordained to get into UPSC or
Mm,
anything. Ordinary human being. So to bring that aspect of myself to the wider UPSC community, I think a chat like this is immensely beneficial, and I think that's what I like about Ryan, really, because it brings the original, genuine stuff from people, and I think people would benefit a lot from these talks. I really
I think
I love
think
talking to you as well. No, it's a very
thank you.
organically conducted talk. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I genuinely believe that rather than talking about mental health in silos, just showing a very authentic, true face of preparation does a lot good.
Yeah.
Uh,
Correct.
because like you said, you got to know about Civilsdaily because Anudeep Durishetty rank one in his blog wrote about us. That's a very organic way of getting to know about someone. Now, when you talk about your struggles and someone happens to watch a video, even though you're
Yeah.
not giving them a gyan, ki aise karo, waise karo, they're able to see that,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm not alone. And
Correct.
these things do much help. Then people would say, ki, Acha, hey, do these things for being the right discipline and wo karoge to mental health issues nahi honge. Like,
Mm-hmm.
never helps. That's the reason why I read those few verses of that struggle wala thing, because the premise of that guy's book was ki when real shit happens, all these
Mm-hmm.
good advices they don't come to pass.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
hard things about hard things is just that they're damn hard.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and I'll send that book to you for sure. You'd
Sure.
appreciate it much more now that you've ingratiated yourself into the philosophy of life and all that.
Yes.
Any good movie recommendation that you would have for our audience, which you watched in
Um,
these 4 years?
yes, I would. Is Malayalam movies fine? A lot of
Yeah, yeah,
class.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So there is this movie called Tani Avartanam,
Okay,
THANIYA.
we'll get there. So what is it about?
So it is the title essentially means recurrence. It is about a person who is labeled as schizophrenic or as a lunatic by society or by his family, and then his actual journey. He's a
I
very
think we.
pretty, yeah. Okay. So in actuality, the person is not he's he does not suffer from neurodivergence as such, but then gradually, because of so many people talking, he just walks into it. That's one uh, good Malayalam classic movie that you can watch. I have other recommendations as well if you want me to go on.
Please go ahead. Yes. Sure.
Sure. So another would be Imayu. Imayu is a movie from this director called Jose Pellicheri. It is a movie about death and all sorts of different things happening associated with a person's death. It's a very gripping, moving uh, movie. I mean, people. I think UPSC crowd would, not all, but then some people might appreciate it. Um,
Okay.
yeah. So some new Malayalam movie could be Kumbalangi Nights, a very feel good movie.
Yeah, I have watched that.
Many would have heard about it. Kumbalangi Nights, a very feel good, nice, good movie. These are three movies. I could go on, but then we don't have time.
So did you? So these 4 years, did you explore literature and movies and songs apart from the preparation? Yeah, ये थोड़ा सा ही रखा, limited ही रखा.
I think it is very limited, but I did watch a lot of movies because my brother loves watching a lot of movies. So he used to, but then he watches all of these, English and other language, mainly Hollywood movies. But then he used to tell me, कि देखो यार, मतलब movies
Have you watched
देखो.
this movie, by the way, Pursuit of Happiness?
Yes, I have. I watched it maybe 3, 4 times, and I
Uh,
did feel like Stephen Gardner a lot of times. There's this quote from him. In your fourth standard, you think about all the things that you could become, and then you realize that you did not become any of them. In my preparation, I used to, think like that. In my school, I used to think that I could become a lot of these things, and then I have not cleared this exam, and I've not become any of them. But then, fortunately, like Gardner, things turned out.
that movie is part of the book he wrote. The guy wrote the book, same title, and movie is I think
Oh,
1/3 of the book.
okay.
So I remember buying that book when I saw the movie, and I was like, I was rooting for him. Ki, ab kuch bura na ho, now he should arrive in a manner of speaking, but then he'll go for another dip. And in the book, I remember, just now that, his mother, I think, was serving jail time, but she was
Mhm,
just allowed one day to come to meet with him. And she
mhm,
used to, I think, come with an ice cream cart. So his fondest memory as a kid was ki mummy aa rahi hai with an ice cream cart and giving him a softie or some ice cream, and then she used to go away. Like, so that book itself is like, another big
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that story. Cool. Awesome. I absolutely loved chatting with you. I think we'll try to schedule some time with you for pure play academic stuff, which any
Sure. Sure.
self-study aspirant can kind of get a sense of ki, acha, this is another perspective to look at GS. And, would love to have like an hour of your time for that.
Sure. Sure.
Meanwhile,
Sure.
have fun, have a good night. Thanks for, coming to chat with us at such a short notice. It was lovely to have.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I mean, this has been a very, novel, unique way of interacting. I really liked, opening up, a lot. And this is something that I wanted to do as well, because I wanted to talk about brainstorming and everything in a much more casual way. And I think this really helped me. So thank you so
This
much
is
for
the
having me.
first time I heard about, by the way. So the reason why I want to do the academic chat is because the art of writing I keep hearing a lot, but the art of thinking of an answer, staying with that, it's something, would help a lot of people who can't just find time to commit to answers. So if they kind of understand your basic framework, it would be very, very helpful for, them to go forward.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
But we'll find time again, and I'd love to, host you one more time.
Sure.
Thank you,
Sure.
Benjo. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Bye bye.